And the savings are pretty substantial that our residents, the savings that they could realize are pretty substantial. And so we just really feel like that's the avenue we need to walk down. Now, it's not that easy because we are part of a special service district, so there's some laws that regulate withdrawal from those types of things. After looking all that and weighing the different options, we felt like it's a move that we needed to make, controlling our own destiny in that and deciding, which provider provides the best service at the best cost for our residents.
Welcome to Herrimanology,
the official podcast to keep up with Harriman City.
We'll take you inside the city, explore the latest news and updates, show you how your government operates, and discuss the issues that affect us all. Now, here are your hosts talking all things Harriman on Herrimanology.
All right, welcome to Herrimanology. It is Thursday, June 26th, and want to apologize for the lawnmower sound in case you hear it. We're doing this 8 o'clock in the morning because that's the time that worked for us. Not that anybody cares when we record these, but there are some lawnmowers going on just outside our window. So happy to be joined today by Councilmember Sherrie Ohrn. How are you doing?
Great. Thanks for having me.
I'm John LaFollette, Communications Manager. We had a city council meeting last night. We'll hit on a few things. Two kind of garbage-related things. One was a withdrawal from the Wasatch Front Waste Recycling District. The other was a membership agreement and buy-in, if you will, for the Transjordan cities for a future landfill. I think this is the first time anybody's probably paying attention to either of those two things. So first off, Wasatch Front Waste and Recycling District is the hauler who, as many people know, if you pay your bills and pay attention who you're paying them to, picks up your garbage and takes it to the landfill. But that might be as much as people know. How can we catch people up on those two decisions from last night?
The county used to pick it up. It used to be Salt Lake County that run the program several years ago. It was transitioned into Wasatch Front Waste and Recycling District, and we just kind of were swept up in that transition. And we've been a part of that district for many years. And there are haulers, and they've done a great job. It's nothing against their performance or anything of that nature, but we just recently, it was implemented this year, a pretty good rate increase. And I serve on that board, and I was really concerned about the rate increase. It just felt like it was, we're the highest in the county as far as cost to serve on our household. So it just felt like we had to do our due diligence and really look into if that was the best service for us, the best option for Harriman. And so we sent it out for RFP, I believe in February, several months ago, we sent out an RFP.
Meaning request for proposal.
A request for proposal to service our community to the private market. And the savings are pretty substantial that our residents, the savings that they could realize are pretty substantial. And so we just really feel like that's the avenue we need to walk down. Now, it's not that easy because we are part of a special service district, so there's some laws that regulate withdrawal from those types of things. And there should be, because what you don't want to do is make a district go bankrupt by withdrawing. And there has to be, some compensation. We've done this with the police when we left, UPD, those types of things. There has to be a withdrawal process and a negotiation so that, obviously they've bought trucks and cans and incurred expenses to service our community. So we have to look at that and see what's fair and equitable between our city and the district to withdraw. But after looking all that and weighing the different options, we felt like it's a move that we needed to make to move forward with withdrawing from that district and kind of controlling our own destiny in that and deciding which provider provides the best service at the best cost for our residents.
Yeah. Also in the same meeting, also garbage related, not necessarily related to this, but there's a group of cities called the Transjordan cities, who you may have heard that term before, with the Transjordan landfill. And Harriman City will, there are a few more I's to dot and T's to cross, but presumably become a member of the Transjordan cities. What is that, and why is that important?
Sure. So we'll become a member of the Transjordan landfill. We're currently not a member, and non-member tipping fees, which means the fees we have to pay per ton to dump trash there, are about double what they are if you're a member city. So there's some significant cost savings over time. So what the agreement says is that but we need to buy into that agreement because we can't just come in at the same benefit the other cities have had to build the infrastructure and things like that and pay for those types of things. So we have a buy-in provision that allows us to pay $100,000 a year for 4 years, starting another year from now, and then we'll pay the non-member tipping fees for 15 years or less to pay off our buy-in to Transjordan landfill, and then at that point, we'll get the reduced tipping rates. And this allows us to have ownership in a landfill for 80 to 100 years. It really solidifies for generations our ability to utilize the landfill.
And worth noting that landfill that people are used to going to right now is expected to be filled up and completed, if you will, within 6, 7, 8 years. And this helps the city secure a spot in a future landfill to make sure, like you mentioned, for the next several generations that we have a place to put our waste.
Yeah. So these guys, I think they're projected at 7 years to close this, but in its place will be a transfer station, which means a place the public can come, dump their trash, and then it's compacted and hauled in larger trucks out to another landfill that's south of Utah Lake.
Yeah. More to come on that, but 2 significant decisions last night in that regard.
I was kind of excited because usually we don't get to say, it looks like we'll have an opportunity to reduce your rates. Usually it's always we have to increase it. So it looks like there'll be an opportunity to have some rate reductions on that. So that would be nice.
Yeah, exciting. Another big finish line, I guess. We've talked about fiber-optic internet in the city for the last, I think you said 4 years last night. It's been a while. So the bottom line is the city council and the city recognize we're in the year 2025. The internet is a huge part of people's lives now, and there are parts of the city that don't have great internet access. Some have okay access. Some areas, thankfully, my house has fiber internet access, but that's not universal across the city. So the city council years ago was like, how do we come up with a way to try to encourage or bring more fiber optic internet throughout more areas of the city to give people that access? For a while, it looked like the city was trying to do a municipal broadband network, meaning one that was basically owned by the city, operated by a private entity. That was a private private-public partnership. It ended up not working, and maybe you can get into that, but there was an agreement agreed to last night by the city council with All West Communications. We've mentioned it on this podcast before, but it was several months ago, so maybe we can rehash that. So not exactly what the city looked at a few years ago, but still something that we hope will serve residents now.
Yeah, for sure. And so we had our broadband team at the city, and I served on that with Steve Shields for a long time, and it's been a 4-year process. And I would say COVID really prompted a lot of that because so many people were home and needed access to internet. Other kids were online. They were online for work, those types of things. And it was just really overwhelming for the services that we had available in a lot of different areas. So I can honestly tell you we tried real hard to get it to where we could just have one company come in, help us as a city get everyone connected. You would have an opt-out, so if you didn't want it, you didn't have to. But and then the interest rates spiked way high for bond ratings, and then there was some legislation and threats of legislation that just said, no, we don't want cities doing that. And so it was just unfortunate timing. So we had to back off of that and move away from that. But one of the other real objectives that I strongly believed in was making our city services part of that, to make sure our parks and our water and those types of things really have access to good broadband so that we can really utilize that service to save money, increase efficiencies in our city. And so All West said we can do that. So they're using, because they're working with the city, they can use the public utility easement and put their fiber in the PUE, it's called, which saves them money. It saves construction time and things like that for them. and then the benefit they'll have is we'll be able to utilize that for city stuff, and they also will be able to use some of our conduit that doesn't have fiber in it to service other areas throughout our city. So they are not going to promise to go to every area of the city, which we had hoped that we could get to that, but they have committed to do their best to try and get to every area of the city. So, and I believe they will. It's economies of scale, the same. At some point they have to also stay in business, so they can't do things that they'll lose money on.
Yeah. One key part of that you mentioned that could affect individual properties is the public utility easement, the PUE. And again, we've mentioned this before, but this is a unique agreement as far as internet providers go, where you have the public right-of-way, which is the width of the road, curb, gutter, sidewalk, and park strip that's typically owned by the city, by the public. Then you have the first several feet, usually it's 10 feet into private property, that is usually, again, every property is unique, but for the most part, that's usually reserved for public utility easements, where you have power or sewer or something that you can access public utilities through that section of private property. And this agreement would allow All West to be able to expand their fiber network using that PUE that most internet companies can't, to help expand their network. So that's just something to be aware of. We'll have stuff on our website, and as they work in different areas of the city, we'll make sure people are aware, but that's something that could affect your property. Of course, they'll be required to restore it to, if they disrupt your property, they'll be required to restore it to whatever it was before. But just something to be aware of.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think it's also important to note also that we also send this out for request for proposal, for an RFP also. So it wasn't like we just randomly went out and selected All West. It was open to anybody who wanted to participate, and then based on the bids we got back, this was the best option.
Yeah. One more discussion we want to touch on in the work meeting was about external, or I guess detached accessory dwelling units. Yeah. I think we're the only people in the world who call homes dwelling units, but we do. ADUs for short. We've talked in the past about internal accessory dwelling units. Last night was about detached. What on earth does any of this mean, and why can it apply to residents?
Right. So we do have provision in the code right now where you can have an accessory dwelling unit, aka inside your house. You can have someplace, a little apartment or something where you can rent, or people can utilize that. There's some provisions behind that, some regulations behind that, but it's allowed in certain areas. But currently, external accessory dwelling unit, so your little mother-in-law home, a little mother-in-law apartment, or chalet, or whatever you want to call them, are prohibited in Herriman currently. And we feel like it's time to look into that, allow those, regulate those, and make sure that what we don't want to do is change neighborhoods into commercial settings to where you're having a lot of traffic and the impact to the neighborhood is significant. So we're trying to work through an ordinance that will allow accessory dwelling units, so a little home in your backyard, small houses, whatever people want to call them, so that allows you either extra income, or some of the kids that are living in your basement can now be out of your basement in a separate dwelling unit. So we're working through the process of creating an ordinance for that. And so I would just really, really encourage the public to give feedback on that. Reach out to your council members. There's always a opportunity on the city website to submit comments and things like that. We really like the feedback because we want to make this something that's good for our public, that, if you really need this, or you really want certain things in this ordinance, reach out to us, and so we can consider those types of things when we're working through this process, because I think it will be a benefit. I know it will be a benefit to our city. It will help with housing supply and things like that, as long as we do it right, as long as we put the right parameters around it so that it doesn't have a negative impact on the next door neighbor who doesn't want to have it.
Yeah, to be crystal clear, this is something that has not been part of the city code. It's been prohibited and the city council is talking about allowing this as a new thing. We don't have a code. We're asking for the public input. What are your ideas? What do you think could work for us? Reach out to your city council member. It's not very often that we get to totally set our own parameters around this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And there may or may not be state mandates that come down one way or the other in coming years, but for now, we can set our own guardrails, so we really need that public feedback to let us know what the community wants.
Yeah, I love it.
One more thing, we're 1 week out from Independence Day, which I'm now reminded I'm not prepared for my 5K run I'm doing first thing that morning. That's a whole other thing, but it is about a week out from the legal... the state calls it discharge dates for fireworks. So that's 2 days before and 1 day after Independence Day and Pioneer Day. That's set by state law. We don't get to change the dates or tell people if they can or cannot overall. Now the city council can and does and has this year, in coordination with Unified Fire Authority, set out a map of places where discharge is illegal, period. But there are other places in the city where lighting of fireworks is allowed. We just wanted to touch on all that before it gets to that week. You can find information on our website, herriman.gov/fireworks. We'll have all this information on there, link to the map, the days and hours, but it's almost that time. So, and just be smart.
Yeah. I love that you brought that up. I love fireworks. I was so sad that we weren't able to do the fireworks at Town Days because that's a highlight to some of that also. But the example there would be it was simply not safe. It was the risk of causing a fire is just not worth it when you're talking about the things that become destroyed. People's, you can really destroy someone's life if you burn down their home, those types of things. So I would say the council would be just because you can doesn't mean you should. So really pay attention and use good judgment. Even if you're in an area that allows fireworks, watch the weather, see what the wind's doing, understand the conditions around you before you really do that, because the last thing on earth you want to do is cause a fire. It's financially damaging for you, for the people who have the fire. It's just simply not worth it to push something that you shouldn't be pushing.
Yeah. And we have had fires from fireworks in Herriman before.
Yeah.
They're very common. I would venture to say it's not the fire department's favorite day of the year.
For sure.
And police department, if you do see someone lighting off fireworks in kind of a vegetated, undeveloped field or in a place that is not legal, call emergency dispatch, 801-840-4000. We want those things reported. Not that we're necessarily going out and wanting to catch everybody to get ticket revenue or anything like that. That's not what we're doing. We're trying to prevent fires here. But if you see something, please say something. Our police will be out, but they're not going to be on every street constantly throughout the whole night. So
they can't. It's just impossible. And sometimes by the time they can respond, the activity is over. But it's just so important to just work with your neighbors, chat with your neighbors, talk to them about your concerns. Please don't light those, because of X, Y, Z. Those kind of things are important.
Yeah. So be smart, be safe, also have fun. If you are in a safe area and you can do it safely, enjoy yourself. Don't do it too late at night. Happy Independence Day when it comes up. We'll have another podcast before then, but it's that time of year.
And there's so many things we can do to celebrate this wonderful, great nation that we're privileged to live in besides just fireworks. So if you feel like it's not safe to light fireworks, figure out something fun to do to celebrate this wonderful country.
Running a 5K.
There you go.
If you want to choose to do that. And you mentioned, too, the Town Days fireworks. A lot of people have been wondering, when is the city going to reschedule for the fireworks shows that were canceled during Town Days? For those of you who aren't aware, just catching up, we had a fireworks show for about 6 minutes scheduled on Friday of last week, then an 18-minute show on Saturday. Friday, the winds were super strong. We, like you said, wanted to cancel those because we have a hillside there that can catch on fire. We have homes that can catch on fire. There's a certain wind speed that if sustained winds are beyond that, we're not going to light them off because we don't want hot embers being blown out to who knows where. So we were hoping to stack both of those shows onto the Saturday. Unfortunately, the winds returned on Saturday, and it was kind of the same story. We had to cancel the fireworks. We know a lot of people were really disappointed. We were too. I spent way too much time putting those playlists together. We really wanted to do it. It didn't work out. And our contract with, worth mentioning, we don't own those fireworks. Those belong to a vendor who we worked with for several years. This is the first time this has happened in a long while. But to cut to the chase, we don't have a rescheduled date. We probably won't. So enjoy other cities' fireworks on the 4th of July. The whole valley is lit up.
Yeah, just go sit on a high point and just watch the valley.
Right. So anyway, sorry to bear bad news again. We do that fairly frequently here, but don't expect a rescheduled date for those. It's just unfortunate and kind of is what it is. So.
Yep. Mother Nature decided to dictate what was happening that day.
Yep, unfortunately. Well, thank you, Councilmember Ohrn, for coming in early Thursday morning. Thank you for listening and watching, and we'll catch you next time.